Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hi, it's me, Egbert, E-G-G-B-U-R-T, the owner of this radio station. I invite everyone to listen, no matter if you're young, old, black, white, Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, heck, I even want real estate agents listening to my station. Yes, even Rick and Tracy. You're all welcome. Now, it's back to my Goodwill ambassadors, Brad and John.
And yes, we are your Goodwill ambassadors, Egbert. We say good things about you because you sign our paychecks, right? So
absolutely, he does.
We're never going to say anything bad about you. Okay, this was sent to me by one of our listeners, okay? And I'm going to see if I can play this on the air. And it's interesting because this is a Channel 4 video. I'm just going to play the beginning of this. I think I can get it to run here. Let's see if it's going to work.
On a story we've followed for years, First Alert 4 followed a tip revealing the Army Corps of Engineers is checking basements for radioactive contamination. This, of course, all part of the cleanup from the Manhattan Project. Russell Kinsell joins us live in Florissant tonight with more on this search. Russell.
Sam, right now I'm on Cades Cove in Florissant. Coldwater Creek is right over there behind these homes, and it's believed that 6 homes on the street were built on soil that has radioactive contamination. So the government agency that's in charge of removing Manhattan Project radioactive waste from the banks of Coldwater Creek for the first time is testing and finding radioactive contamination right where people live.
Now, I'm going to stop at that point. He goes into a long thing where he has a bunch of interviews with people that live there. Now, the interesting thing is when they show these houses, they don't look that old. I would say the generation of these houses is probably maybe since 2000. And
oh wow, that new?
Yeah, and they're not old looking houses at all. And hold on a minute. Very nice looking houses, and essentially what they're saying is that at one point in time when the contractor came in or the developer came in, that they brought some of the where these houses, and so, as they do, if you've seen sometimes you see the big bulldozers pushing ground around at like new plats where they're doing subdivisions, they redo the ground so that it's flat and they can build houses and stuff like that. And supposedly they did some excavation around this where these 6 houses are, and they brought some of them out of the floodplain. And the floodplain was the floodplain of the Coldwater Creek. And that this area had flooded on several occasions, and that the houses, that's what he's talking about, the houses are built on contaminated soil. And they even talk about, if you watch the whole report, they talk about at one point in time, they did some drilling in some of the basement, and they took some soil samples from the soil underneath one of the houses, and they found some radioactivity. Okay, here we go again. Where, and this is the crazy thing, I had it on my thing to talk about this on Monday. I am sort of a nerd when it comes to geography, and sometimes I get into the weeds on stuff like this. And this is all due to a spot on the north side of the airport. And once again, this is a weird thing where Brad does his crazy little geography thing. If you're going east on I-70, okay, and you cross underneath Lindbergh, and then there's an exit there, which essentially is the.
You mean 270, Brad?
No, I'm talking 70.
But you said. Oh, you're right. I-70. I thought you said 170. I'm sorry.
No,
go ahead.
If you're going,
you're going on 70. Sorry.
East on 70. Okay, you cross over under Lindbergh, and you go under Lindbergh. The next exit is Natural Bridge. Okay, to your right there is a big monstrous tank. And it made to look like a building, but it's a big monstrous tank, and that is one of the fueling stations for the airport. That's where they store the jet fuel, and there's tunneling that goes underneath the Interstate 70 and goes into the places where they fuel the aircraft. Okay. Also, you drive over a little bridge, you don't realize it. That is Coldwater Creek. Coldwater Creek actually starts in sometimes I think in a little area called it goes through St. Anne, and I believe there's what's the little area just to the east of St. Anne, I can't remember, but Coldwater Creek goes through St. Anne, goes underneath I-70, and then on the south side of the airport, Coldwater Creek goes into a drainage ditch, or a big old monstrous ditch, and it goes underneath the runways of Lambert, okay? It comes out from underneath the runways right there on McDonald Boulevard, about midway between Lindbergh and where the old McDonnell Douglas headquarters are, where you can essentially stay on McDonald, you make a left and go on airport, end up on 170, okay? Okay, that is the spot where, to this day, you can drive there right now. Matter of fact, the guys at 7:49 in the morning, the guys have probably already started work. You can drive there right now, and you can watch them dig up contaminated soil this very day. And they're still working on this. So what's happened to is they had a big dump of all this radioactive material from the Manhattan Project, and they dumped it right there. And they put it, there's a couple pictures I found online. They put it in 55-gallon drums. In the old days, the drums were made out of steel, and the drums were not lined, which means they were just bare steel on the inside. And guess what happens? They rust out, and the junk leaks out, and it leaked into the ground, and it leached from the ground into Coldwater Creek, and then it goes up through North County, goes, through Hazelwood, through Florissant, and ultimately Coldwater Creek enters into the Missouri River, way up in North County. And this is still going on. Now, you're really good at names. It's public official names. The lady from St. Charles County who has spearheaded this thing again, she's, you know who I'm talking about?
Tricia Burns.
Exactly, Tricia Burns. See, once again, to me, this is a BFD, okay? This is a huge deal that the federal government has not done a good job with. And they keep passing the buck. Oh, working on it. And keep in mind, this happened in the 40s. We're talking the 1940s, okay? We're into the 2024. We're almost halfway through this decade, okay? So we're talking, this happened, 80 years ago?
85 years ago, yeah.
I mean,
80 plus.
Yeah, 80 plus. And keep in mind, I know we've dropped the bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945, but they've been working on, go see the current movie Oppenheimer. They started working on this project back in the late 30s. And if you know your history, one of the things, I didn't see the movie Oppenheimer, but I know that one of the things that's come up quite often is that one of the reasons they were trying to move very quickly on the nuclear bomb was not necessarily for Japan. They thought that Hitler had the bomb. You know what I'm talking about? They thought,
I do.
They thought it at one point in time, and there were engineers, and matter of fact, that was the thing that if you know the whole history of World War II, after World War II, the American military specifically went over and grabbed a bunch of these German scientists. Werner von Braun was one of them who, was very much instrumental in working for rockets for the Nazis and things like that. And they grabbed these people and brought them over to the United States to sort of tap their knowledge.
Yep, their knowledge.
Right. So this has been going on for 85 years. And I'm going and you and I both being North County guys, okay? We both know people who lived, their backyards was Coldwater Creek, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. I mean, and Brad, just as you said, I mean, it runs through Spanish Lake and it goes all the way. And I'm not sure exactly where Coldwater Creek proper ends, but if you're from anywhere up in there, like I had one of my best friends growing up, it was right behind him in Spanish Lake, where there's the new Arrow Point Elementary School. I had a buddy of mine lived on Arrow Point Drive.
Right, it's right. You're exactly right. The Coldwater Creek is down the hill from Arrow Point. It's a junior high. Or is that a grade school? Is that a grade school?
It's an elementary school, yeah.
Elementary school. And Arrow Point is right there at 360.
It's on top of Coldwater Creek.
And it is. I mean, literally, if you walk out of the parking lot of Arrowhead School and you walk down the hill, that's Coldwater Creek, right?
Yeah,
Am I kidding?
Exactly right.
It's right down the street from the school. And it's like.
And as a reminder to everyone, not to make too much light of this, Brad, but Brad and I are fine. You can tell that growing up near that soil had no effect on us, Brad. And you could not totally tell that we grew up in houses with lead paint, by the way. But go ahead.
I know people, honest to God, who used to swim in Coldwater Creek, okay?
Yeah.
I mean, that was not that unusual thing. Now, what's sort of interesting about this is I used to go, where I lived in North County, we used to go into these creeks because kids are always fascinated by creeks. At least I was, and boys are always fascinated by creeks.
Come on,
okay?
man.
You go down to the creek. Hey, my mom would say, where you been today? Oh, Mom, I was down at the creek. Okay, and she knew where it was. Back in the day, a lot of these creeks in North County, as a matter of fact, all over the country for that matter, the sewage treatment plant wasn't the best, and they just dumped the sewage into the creek, right? I mean, am I kidding about this or not?
No, you're exactly right. Yeah.
They dumped the sewage into the creek.
And you started to tell a story the other day, or was it yesterday, about River des Peres, Brad?
Okay, here's my trivia question, okay? And once again, I've had people, when I've told this story to them, I've had people call me a liar when I've said this, okay? I asked you about River des Peres, and I said, where's River des Peres? And I said, geographically, where would you describe River des Peres? And you said...
I said South City and South County.
Do you know where River des Peres starts?
No idea.
Creve Coeur.
No way, really?
Yes, River des Peres starts in Creve Coeur, and matter of fact, it runs through Creve Coeur. It runs through Overland. It runs through a couple. I think at one point in time it runs through Olivet. Creve Coeur is on essentially south of Page. Matter of fact, if you know where Page and Warson is, there's a railroad trestle there. If you go south on Woodson, south on Woodson Road, Page and Woodson. And if you go south on Woodson about a quarter mile, that's River des Peres, okay? River des Peres goes along, as a matter of fact, when you cross over 170 south of Page, you're going over River des Peres. And River des Peres goes through...
Wow, I did not know that.
River des Peres goes through a lot of points if you consider Overland to be North County. Goes through Overland. It goes through University City. Matter of fact, in the last big flood we had, there's a government buyout there buying out a bunch of houses and apartment complex right there off of North Hanley Road. Guess what? That's River des Peres. And then at one point in time, when it gets close to the city, it goes underground in an underground viaduct. It comes back out, and then it goes underneath Forest Park and comes back out on the south side of Forest Park, and then ultimately becomes the big channel that if you're going like the casino, if you know where the casino is, what is it? What's the river? What's the name of the casino there? Is it River something, or what's the name?
Is it River City?
River City Casino. Yeah, okay. River City Casino is built on the south banks of River des Peres, and that's just where River des Peres enters into the Mississippi River. And to a certain extent, if you go down there, it looks like a great big monstrous old drainage ditch. And you talked about the fact that your mom had a T-shirt that said River des Peres Yacht Club. Which,
sweatshirt.
Matter of fact, I think, you know who started that? I think Jack Carney started that whole thing.
No way, really?
Yeah, because the running joke was the River des Peres, for the most part, where, its largest spot down there in South City, for the most part, there's no water in it for the most part of the year. And it's sort of like, you and I talked about this the other day, it's sort of like the LA River, I think it's called the LA River, where they had the scenes of Terminator done.
And Grease, famously,
stuff like that.
The car race scene in Grease.
Right, they're driving in essentially this concrete area that has like a little tiny stream of water in it, but that's one of the stormwater viaducts, or whatever you want to call it, that's built in Los Angeles, because for the most part, when you get down into the actual part of Los Angeles, not in the valley or not in the mountains, whatever, it's flat as a board. It's like Houston. It's like Las Vegas. When you're in Las Vegas and you're in Houston and to that section of Los Angeles, it's super flat. So in other words, what they have to have is these monstrous drainage ditches to essentially take all the rainwater. When it does rain, it rains like crazy. LA's had this problem recently where they have what they call the sky, where they call it there's a term, I should know this. I went to school to get my meteorology degree and I can't remember. They call it the Sky River. You know what I'm, talk. They just had
I don't.
They just had this recently where essentially they say what happens is it's a very localized area of rain that comes out of the atmosphere, and the way it twists around, it's not like a large storm like 5 miles in diameter. It's like maybe 10 miles long, but like a half mile wide, and they call it like a rain river or something like that. And that's this whole crazy thing. So that's the River des Peres, and the River des Peres for a long time. Matter of fact, if you go and you research it, there's an interesting article on Wikipedia. You can read it. Talks about how it's won in like last century. It won civil engineering awards and stuff like that. And the same thing with Coldwater Creek. Coldwater Creek was a project that, and now when they're doing this stuff, the thing I started running about Channel 4, the Army Corps of Engineers is working with this because of the fact that's still under their purvey, that they're involved with, stormwater retention and stuff like that. And this is if my dad were still alive, I get my dad, because this is what my dad did. My dad was a civil engineer, and at one point in time when he was in the military, he was assigned to the Army Corps of Engineers. So he could sit here and talk an hour about Coldwater Creek.
Yeah, and about how to fix it. By the way, it looks like, according to the internets, there is a deli, Brad, called the River de Pere Yacht Club Deli, and it's on a street called Ivory in St. Louis City.
I know where that's at, believe it or not.
Really?
Yes,
wow.
I do know.
Yeah, it's Ivory, and it's at the corner of Ivory and Don't Park Your Car in the City. I think it's the name of the cross street. But.
The name of that street is Don't Park Your Car in the City, especially if it's a Hyundai or Kia. That's what the name of that street.
Yeah. Because Brad and his Kia boys are going to get that USB thing and do a little Jimmy.
Jimmy.
And you can also order, according to the internets, you can order your own River de Pere Yacht Club T-shirts for only, it looks like about $22. You could get one, Brad. Yeah. Maybe don't you have one of your many alternate birthday dates coming up? Don't you say that one of your alternate birthdays is June 1st?
No, June 4th. That's my real birthday.
Oh, June 4th.
June 4th, 1935. That's my birthday. Okay.
It sure is. You do look great for that age, Brad.
I'm telling you what, I can run rings around our president. Okay.
You're on the Mark McCluskey. You're on the Mark McCluskey treatment, I think,
right.
too. The quote, fountain of youth right there.
It's all the clean living I do, all the Mountain Dew and Little Debbie's that I eat. Okay.
It is. Hey, happy hump day, everybody.
Say goodbye, John.
See you guys tomorrow.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's Combest, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?